Trump is going on his first overseas trip, and it's not to London, to Paris, or to Ottawa. He's going to the Gulf. This is very much testimony to a changing geostrategic environment. The Gulf states are more than just oil-rich monarchies. They've become somewhat of a nerve center for US strategy in the region. Think about it. Qatar, it hosts the largest US airbase, Al Udeid, in the region. And it also has become somewhat of the mediator-in-chief for the United States. Then you have the United Arab Emirates, hubs for financial networks, a hub for logistics networks that span the entire region. And then you have Saudi Arabia, somewhat the heavyweight, the old heavyweight in oil and energy markets, but also have become increasingly engaged as a broker and as a mediator. So if the US wants influence in the region without putting boots on the ground, this is how they'll do it, by working through these strategic force multipliers in the Gulf. Trump's trip to the Gulf is about much more than symbolism. It's about delegating American power in a world full of crises. There's the war in Gaza, there's the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria, and there's tensions with Iran, there's the fallout from the Ukrainian war, and all of it is on the table when Trump is now going to the Gulf. And here's the plan. The US is stretched thin. It wants to reduce its military footprint in the region, but still shape outcomes. And the solution? The Gulf states. They can carry the load. And these countries are brokers, they're mediators, they're financiers, and they can solve problems on behalf of Washington. So the US doesn't have to spend money or risk lives. But we have to consider here, the Gulf states are not just passive pawns on the American chessboard. They're confident, they're assertive, and they have leverage. And they're willing to use that to shape the crisis as they see fit. The most urgent files on the table are arguably Gaza, Syria, and Iran, maybe to a lesser extent Yemen. On Syria, the Trump team is very wary of the new leadership in Damascus. And the Gulf states, they're ready to engage. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, they want to invest in post-war reconstruction. They want the Caesar Act, these sanctions lifted. And they will use this visit to really lobby Trump hard on this. And then there's Gaza. 52,000 Palestinians have been killed, children and women. And loads more have been displaced. Gulf leaders will push Trump to rein in Netanyahu, demand more humanitarian aid to come in, stop regional escalation, and work towards a solution to this war. And the fear is that Israel's war will threaten the Red Sea and stability all over the region. And it will spark possibly more and more backlash in the Arab world, which these Gulf states want to avoid. And with Iran, the Gulf's message is very clear. They don't want war. They might want non-coercive degradation. They want deterrence, but they don't want destruction. And they certainly don't want open conflict that will devastate not just their economies, but completely undermine their national security. But this visit isn't just about the Middle East. It's about global power plays as well. Saudi Arabia recently hosted quiet talks between the United States and Russia over Ukraine, and Trump will thank them for that. But he will also likely ask for more to seal a deal. It boosts the global image of Riyadh as a bridge between East and West. Qatar and the UAE, meanwhile, have brokered prisoners deals between Moscow and Kiev as a way of somewhat smoothing some of the tensions. Then there's China. Trump wants Gulf states to pick sides, Washington or Beijing. But here's the twist, the Gulf will not choose. The US might be their security guarantor, albeit one whose commitments have been somewhat put into question in recent years. But China is their top trading partner. China is the commercial superpower whose thirst for energy keeps rials, dirhams, and dinars rolling in the Gulf. So expect the Gulf to play both sides, offering wins to each while avoiding clear alignment. And that's strategic balance, and that's the new normal. Now let's talk about domestic politics. Trump needs to come home with wins. The visit is designed to produce some big headlines for him. Something along the lines of Trump secures billions of Gulf investments. Trump builds global energy alliance. Or something along the lines of Trump's mega deal to end all wars in the Middle East. We're not quite there yet though. With tariffs and inflation hurting his base, Trump's goal is simple. Use Gulf cash to prove his America First agenda is winning again. And these Gulf leaders, well, they understand that game. And they're willing to play it. Even if the pledges are often hopelessly inflated, they want continued access, protection, and influence in Washington. So what does it all mean? Trump's second term's pivot to the Gulf isn't about oil or ceremony, it's about delegating US statecraft amid a world full of crises. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE are no longer just allies, they are co-architects of a new regional order. They broker deals, they fund peace, they host negotiations, and they certainly shape global markets. And as the US pulls back, the Gulf steps in, not just for themselves, but somewhat as extensions of American power. And this is why I would say this is the Gulf moment 2.0, and the world is watching.